This is the Torg Eternity Delphi Council Debriefings, where the storm has a name. We are your hosts, Leamon, Jay, and Mark, and today we will be talking about the Core Earth Cosm Cards. So we'll go through the Core Earth Cosm Cards. Before we dive into that, I just wanted to remind everybody, you can email us at torgdcd@gmail.com. We will read your emails in the next episode that we record, answer any questions, read any of your comments, etc. We don't have any emails since the last time I had emails on the episode, but we do encourage you all to send them in. Having said that, let's just jump in. So, Core Earth Cosm Cards, these are cards that get passed out. If you're in Core Earth or in a Core Earth mix zone, you have a random chance of gaining one of these per act. There's a Destiny card and other means that you might be able to gain a Cosm card, but normally it's one per act, and some of them you use immediately, some of them you play when you wish to, and you just use them to kind of make things a little more interesting. Some Core Earth are mostly, if not all, good. Some of the other Cosms are a mixed bag, but they all bring drama, excitement, and possible rewards. The other thing I wanted to say is Core Earth is the one Cosm reality that has 10 cards. When the other Cosm source books were released, we released 10 additional cards. And I do want to say that we do understand that people are looking for 10 more Cosm cards for Core Earth, and that is something that is in the plans for the future of Torg Eternity, and 1.5 is to getting the Core Earth cards up to 20. So let's take a look at number one. Number one is called Spurred On, and the text reads, play when any hero is KO'd or defeated. All other Storm Knights are up on their next turn. So, Jay, your thoughts, experiences, anything you want to talk about with Spurred On?
Most people really want to get Core Earth cards because Core Earth cards are very powerful for the players. However, this one I think is one you probably don't want to get usually. As we discussed earlier, getting KO'd is fairly infrequent. The one thing you could do is, if you do have a martial arts character in your group, tell them just to go wild, and this will make everyone else up. But we do need to talk a little bit about the definition here of defeated, because it's going to be important for the next card. And my interpretation is that you have to actually fail the defeat test to count as defeated, right?
That's or is it what just I would
taking
say.
It? Right. So someone has to either be out of action completely and injured or KO'd. Then you can play Spurred On, and all other Storm Knights are up on their next turn. And up on everyone being up on their next turn is very powerful, but it's one of those cards that requires you to plan to fail in some aspect. It only gets used if one of the characters, maybe even your own, goes down. So A, it's unlikely. B, you don't want that to happen very often. And then C, there's no guarantee that even an up is going to necessarily do what you need it to do. So, I mean, it can stop you from going down a death spiral, but it's not exactly one that's going to help you advance your position, if that makes sense. So it's all right. I probably, if I got this, I'd be like, geez. That's about it.
Mark, your thoughts on Spurred On?
I find Spurred On to be kind of a safety net. I don't know that I don't see it as, I'm with Jay on you draw it and you're like, because it's not really, in my opinion, and I think most players view the Core Earth cards as a as a possibility generator, because most of the cards are, like as you pointed out, good for the players. And even when the ones are like, something that we'll get to them, that are slightly negative or cause a combat or whatever, it generates possibilities for everybody. And so you want to get them. And when you get spurred on, I kind of view it a lot like Inevitable Return from the Nile Empire, just because if somebody happens to go down, here's all Storm Knights are up the moment you play this. So drop it on the table, boom. Your defeat test, if you have to make one, up. Right? Because you're one of the Storm Knights. You're taken out, but you're still a Storm Knight.
Well,
so
it
you're
says
up.
all other Storm Knights.
Oh, all other. Does it say all
yeah.
other?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that sucks. Okay. Sucks for you. It does say all other. Okay. But anybody who's trying to help you, if you've got somebody who's got, heals that can cast a healing miracle on you, they're up for that, those kinds of things. So it becomes we're in a bad spot because we went from however many Storm Knights we had down to less, and we still got to deal with what we got to deal with. Well, everybody else is up now. And so if we're in a fight, everybody loves an up. So
yeah,
I like it. It's the word. It is not a great card, but it's a safety net.
That's how I see it. And I was going to bring up the one or two Nile cards that I also think if I'm the one that gets them, I'm like, okay, hopefully I don't use it, but we have an out, or there's something that can be done to make a horrible situation a bit better. And yeah, so I'll just say it's a good card. I wouldn't consider great compared to other ones, but it's a decent safety net. And
it's not like drawing Eyes of the Tsar.
Right.
Yeah.
the other thing that I would point out is that if this would happen, somebody would play this when the characters are already up for another reason, usually because the drama card saying up, they don't stack. So you get one up. So that would be my luck, or a couple other people I know, that the time that this needs to be done is the one that is, we're already up anyway.
Yeah, but you don't get to stack it up with a flurry. So I mean, it's till their next turn. So if you flurry, your next turn is your flurry turn, right?
Well,
so you. Well, okay.
On
so
their
maybe,
next turn, yes, on their next turn.
Yeah, it says turn.
So, yeah, not round.
So if I drop a flurry, I'm taking another action. I get another turn because I get to put a pool of card the whole 9 yards, right? So my flurry action, my flurry turn is no longer up because of this.
For this card, correct.
It would be if the drama card had an up, but
correct.
not for
yes. Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to Keep Fighting number 2. So this is play when any character must test defeat. She automatically receives an outstanding result without a roll. She may say a few encouraging words before being KO'd. All Storm Knights gain one possibility from her heroic sentiment. So, Jay, your thoughts on Keep Fighting?
If you have both this and someone else has spurred on, I guess you can use them because you are still KO'd, and spurred on works from a KO. So, this one this is a good insurance card. I have seen this one used actually. Outstanding result on a defeat test basically means you get away scot-free. There's no permanent or temporary injury. You are still out of commission because you're KO'd, but you're not dead, right? So as long as everyone knows this is in the background, they can kind of afford to be a little more aggressive, maybe a bit more aggressive attacks, and making themselves very vulnerable. And the fact that everyone gets possibilities, including this time it's all Storm Knights get one. And this is what Mark was talking about. People like them possibilities. So this is a good one. Insurance policy and possibilities. But if no one is defeated, you can't play it or KO'd. So again, it does have that, can you use it? Will it happen? If you've got, this is one of those cheesy things that I was loath to bring up, but if you are playing someone who happens to be like a werewolf or something, who can regenerate and get yourself KO'd a lot, then that might be something you might, again, be more aggressive with it. But yeah, it's pretty good. I think it's a little bit better than Spurred On, but still not like one of the. I just want to make a tier list, it seems, but
right. Yeah. Maybe we'll do that
like,
at one time. I'll do the the A through F. Mark, your thoughts on Spurred On?
Before I get into that, can
keep
you
fighting?
Keep fighting. I would like you to clarify for everybody the difference between defeat and KO'd, because it's to me it's not real clear in the rule set. The old school in classic Torg, you would collect a K and you would collect an O, and that would be KO'd. We don't collect Ks and Os anymore, and we don't have that rolling around in Torg Eternity, so it's less clear what a KO is versus testing for defeat.
Okay, so in original Torg, they had two different KOs. One was through the K and O, and the other is if you accumulated the shock above your shock limit. So in Torg Eternity, it is if you're at your shock limit and you take any more shock, you are KO'd.
Right.
Which
so you're not going to test for...
As well as if you take above your wound limit, you are also KO'd. So there are two different ways to be KO'd. With the wound limit KO, then you will also need to test for defeat.
Right. So to me, this card, it kind of gets a little sketchy because it starts in the opening pair. It says play when any character must test for defeat. So you have to be taken out from wounds to play this card first, because you're testing for defeat. For some reason, you're testing for. You come up with another reason than wounds. I don't know off the top of my head what that would be, but then it says outstanding result and roll. She may say if you were before being KO'd. So you're knocked out at the end of playing this card.
Right. This is kind of like an interruption.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a little, to me, the verbiage kind of muddies the water a little bit on that. And so, you get an inspiration, you're back in the game with this, whereas you test for defeat and you don't get an outstanding, you might not be. So I'm with Jay. It's like if we tiered it, this would be just above the Spurred On, because you get a possibility with it and everybody gets it, whereas Spurred On is up for everybody else. So yeah, I mean, it's a safety net again if you're going down, or if you're playing the Pan Pacifica Gun Fu guy who walks into the place and Death Blossoms and his 10 spirit, he's just blown 8 or 9 shock in the first round because he did all of his stuff and then flurried and did it all again, and now he's like, okay, that's all I got, you guys go ahead, and then somebody goes boop for 2 points and he's down. Done. I mean,
well, that would work for Spurred On, but the keep fighting one is actually defeat. So.
Yeah, it's defeat.
Or if like Medusa turned you to stone or something.
There you go.
That was
so yeah, that's the main difference. Is Spurred On can be KO'd by shock, and the keep fighting, the KO needs to be by wounds, because you will be testing for defeat. So that is, or maybe I said the wrong thing. Let's
keep
do this
fighting
over.
Is just defeat test.
Yes, keep fighting is just defeat test, which would be required by wounds or other things that sometimes force a defeat test.
Yeah, getting transformed into a frog.
Right, or Spurred On is by KO or by wounds or other things. So yeah, keep fighting is another nice safety net. The fact that all Storm Knights gain the possibility include this person, and on both of them you can play it when somebody else, so you don't only have to do it for yourself. So as Jay kind of alluded to earlier, you can say, hey, everybody, you can go completely bonkers if you want. I can save one of you.
I can save one of you. Whoever goes down first, I got you. The rest of you, you're on your own.
And not having to roll for or automatically succeeding the outstanding result for a defeat test is nice, because then you don't even have to worry about any type of injury, permanent or temporary.
That's the value of that card to me, really, is that I get it's a get out of jail free card for being stupid or for being, brazenly
terminally
heroic, terminally unlucky. Looking at you, Jim.
Okay, so number 3, rousing speech. Make a short speech designed to inspire allies. If played during combat, the speech is a simple action. The speaker and everyone who can hear her gains 2 possibilities. So, Jay, your thoughts on rousing speech?
I make 2 assumptions about this card.
Hey.
One, that only possibility rated characters will get said possibilities, not everyone who heard the speech. And 2, that it's the allies of the person giving the speech and not everyone hearing the speech. Does that sound reasonable to you two?
I say that's up to the game master's interpretation. Okay. So what I would do is I would say this is a non-combat, and unless you want it to be like a super nemesis where they all get possibilities and we all get possibilities. But I would have it where it didn't give normal ordinary ords. It wouldn't give them possibilities. But yeah, I would say
because
unless see, this is what I love about the way that Leamon has approached, and we collectively have approached Torg Eternity, is that it's your Cosmverse. The way you want to run it, you run it. The way that this is worded, if we were in a situation where, let's say, home game, whatever, we're going to pull up a Stella. We have to pull this Stella up for whatever reason. And nobody's hit glory in this region. And somebody said, you know what? I want to play this to give the people that I can broadcast. Maybe I get on the radio, whatever, and I do a rousing speech. We do, December 7th, 1941 speech, whatever, and try to inspire the zone before we pull this Stella up. I might let that slide. Jay's question really was, in the middle of combat, are we just giving everybody a bunch of possibilities like Nemesis does? I'm with Jay on that one. But if you're going to make the case that I need to inspire a whole bunch of ords or we're going to turn them into what ifs, I might let that roll.
Be on the radio or TV and make sure everybody's watching.
Yeah. The mechanics behind storytelling have kind of fallen through in Eternity versus Classic, so I could see doing something like that as well.
I would contend. You're right. I would contend only because we haven't written anything or done anything that requires it.
Well, also, I like to let players use Cosm cards to do things that aren't necessarily exactly written in, but like sort of fit the theme as well.
I am open to them convincing me this will play this way. Sure. I'm with you.
Yeah, so I could see doing that. But I guess if I was a player looking at this in my hand, if this is it only affects the good guys, then yes, this is an amazing card, right? It's just 2 possibilities for everybody. I will make you make the speech, but
thank you for saying that.
But if it was going to also give it to reality rated enemies, not as good. Still good though, because you're probably giving 1 enemy 2 possibilities. Meanwhile, like 4+ good guys 2 possibilities. So the amount is still disproportionate, but it'd be like a B then. But it's like this is like a primo card if it's just for friendlies, which I'm pretty sure is the intention.
So yeah, I wouldn't give. Okay. Clarify. I wouldn't give ords possibilities, but as Mark said, if it was something about refilling ords with possibility energy to help with the removal of a stele, I would allow that to bleed over, allow them to be filled with the possibility energy. And since it says who can hear, I would do it over TV, radio, big megaphone, whatever goes into that. But I do kind of like being the game master that says, "Hey, the enemies are going to hear you,"
It
and
says everyone.
they're gonna still their resolve against you doing your thing. And the other thing
Well,
is,
hang on. It says make a short speech designed to inspire allies.
that's where
Designed
you
to.
get fluff versus a crunch, and that's where a lot of issues.
So if you're a
sometimes.
player and you draw this, immediately ask your GM what it means.
Yes.
You might want to, but I am, and I don't do this often. I 100% agree with Jay. If you don't make this, if you're a GM and you don't make them make a speech, you're doing it wrong.
I'll counter as that's up to the table. Some people are comfortable with it and some people are not, and it kind of depends. You might have the person
That's
who
fair.
has various anxiety or other things that would harm that, and I wouldn't want them to not be able to use a card. That's something that's going to be this whole card is going to be table specific.
It's all table specific.
But
come on,
especially this one. But in my group, I would personally want my group. I'd make them, but I know my group. If I was, say, at a convention, then I might say, "Hey, do you want to make a speech? You want to,
or you get an extra possibility for yourself if you make a speech."
Yeah,
something like that.
I like the RP, so I'm a fan of that. But you're 100, Leamon, you're 100% correct.
Although it is a simple action, so it's like a 3-second
speech.
I mean, you could do go get them is just do better, and whatever.
So okay, let's move on to number 4, the Law of Hope. Play at any time. Any Storm Knight who wishes may immediately refresh his possibilities. Jay, thoughts on Law of Hope?
When I first started running the game, this was a very powerful card because people would blow through all their possibilities. Once my players kind of figured out what they were doing, it didn't happen that much. We might have one guy who was out, but everyone else would. I would have people ending games with 6+ possibilities. It would just get ridiculous after a while. So this is good, but it requires everyone to be spending all their stuff. So, because when you play it, it happens then and there. That's it. So if you're still at 3, it doesn't do anything.
Yep.
So it behooves you to want to spend and maybe fish for those glories a little bit better. This is a good one just to let people, again, most of the Core Earth cards are like this. Let the other players know you've got it and don't hoard your possibilities. Because we can all go to 0 and then boom, just refill right then and there. So it is very good, but the more experienced players don't seem to need it in my experience.
Mark, your thoughts on the Law of Hope?
Play at any time. Super important. We call this in the grid tables that I run. We call this the smoke 'em if you got 'em card, and you tell people you got it, just like Jay said, because at this point, every roll of consequence, throw a possibility on it. Everybody. If you're not in combat, it doesn't matter if you have 0. Because you're not testing for defeat. And the moment that the GM says, okay, we're going to turn the drama card, play it at any time. And now all of a sudden the 0 guys go back up to whatever they want to go back up to. Then now you can soak and all the rest of it. You've taken care of it. So in my opinion, there is 0 downside to this card. The only downside is Jay's point of some of the more seasoned players, because the habit is not to zip through the possibilities, tend to not play them as frequently when this is available because of that. It's just inherent and ingrained in their play style that they're like, I need to conserve these for the times I need them. When this is in play, Katie bar the board, throw them down left and right but the good thing to do is try to not be the guy that goes to 0 and everybody else is still at 3 and 2 because you're like, dude, play the card and nobody else benefits.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of step down in sync as a group until everybody's down to 1 or none, and then play it because you get the most bang for your buck.
So other than what Jay and Mark have already said, I did want to point out that it is a choice. So you do not have to refresh. So if you have 7 possibilities, you do not have to go down to 3. It's just those who wish, because I've seen it where this card has been announced, and say 3 out of the 5 people have 0 or 1, and then 2 people just roll decently that night, and they have 4, 5, 6, and they're like, oh, come on, we need everybody to get to 0. And then it becomes oh, should I play this or wait till everybody gets to 0? And when I've been the person with, the more possibilities, I'm like, don't worry about me. You guys need it. Play it.
Yeah.
I could just choose not to refresh, and I still got a ton of possibilities.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great. I think this is a great card. Depending
And
on,
it makes, if you have Prodigy, it effectively lets that perk count twice.
yeah.
Yes. This is arguably the best Core Earth card. Arguably. Which we will have shortly.
So
Yeah,
let's move
very shortly.
on to 5. Welcome to our world. Play on a reality rated foe. The target must make an immediate near impossible, which is a difficulty number of 20, reality roll, or be disconnected. Jay, your thoughts on this card?
I would go so far as to say this is the best for the Cosm card, because what slows down Torg combat the most? For me, it's we've dealt with all the minions and stuff. We have a villain here. We can hit him. We can damage him just. He's got 5 possibilities though, so he's going to be sitting here soaking all day. And sometimes as GM, I will just I can see where this is going. Let's just, fast forward. But this also puts that into the player's hands, because disconnecting a reality rated foe who's your villain, who you have naturally made very stymied as well. And
should have.
Yeah, is not going to be making a difficulty 20 reality check unless it's like a High Lord or something. Unless they spend a bunch of possibilities. So either way, you're gonna get rid of something, right? Yeah, really good. If they disconnect, it's just open season basically. Especially if you can get some wounds in, then they have penalties even if they do reconnect. Depending on what kind of realm they're in, they might have trouble reconnecting. This just shortens one of those combats that can be a slog very quickly. And it's very thematic, the whole welcome to our world, where you have some big techno demon running wild, and then it's like, no, not here. Kind of a thing. So I really like this card. I think this is one of the best. This is one of the cards that feels the best to play.
It's like a opponent fails.
Yeah.
that well. Mark, your thoughts on Welcome to Our World?
I hate this card. I despise this card with a passion, because it's always played on the big threat that you've built up, or you've put a lot of, as a GM, you've put a lot of time into, and you've got this cool plan. And if you do it like Rod has taught me how to do it, you've got a DSR going along the same time where this guy is running around, or this gal is running around, causing utter havoc among the Storm Knights. And then some Storm Knight goes, nope, not in our world. And you're like, seriously? All this cool stuff that I can do, I can't do it? Oh, come on, man. And it just, So from a player's perspective, this is arguably the best card in the deck.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a get out of jail free card with your big bad villain.
Well, I got to use Stormbreak.
Yeah, you just turn off a whole bunch. As Jay pointed out, you either turn off a whole bunch of stuff, or you suck a possibility. You're only going to get one possibility out of him, because you can only play one on the roll. But I mean, you've sucked a resource out of him, and at no threat or cost to you other than the card itself. That's a best, from a GM standpoint, that's a best case scenario for my bad guy. is you play this, I spend a possibility, and I get out of jail free because I hit a 20, depending on what the reality skill for the villain is. But in a worst case possibility or worst case scenario, my villain gets zeroed out right then and there. And in a gameplay scenario, I kind of hate this card. I wish this card got nerfed a little bit from a GM standpoint, because in a thematic game, when you step into the arena with the big bad guy, and you may have played 6 or 7 acts to get to this fight. This fight ought to be the culmination of the whole thing, and you're going to just zero it out, and now he can't soak, and whoever your big beater guy is, or who your big shooter girl is, just blows his face off, and he can't do anything about it, and it's over first round. That's anticlimactic to me. So,
but only in Core Earth.
No, not necessarily.
Or Mixed Zone.
Not necessarily. I was saving this for later, but Reality Surge, Attuned, it could happen.
This is where you make
it can happen.
The Core Earth villain.
Exactly.
That has the automatic reconnection perk. But yes, and I did want to point out that unlike other types of disconnections, which wouldn't affect somebody from that, this just says they have to make an immediate reality roll. It doesn't say that they can't be from Core Earth. So if you are manipulating reality, you are trying to sever them from the Everlaw of 2, depending on their reality skill, then they'll disconnect, spend resources, or get lucky and roll high, or have a high reality roll with a good or decent or reality skill with a good or decent reality roll. But yeah, this is to me, this is almost like that the opponent fails card in the where you just,
but its opponent fails at life.
Yes, because there has been multiple times, and we're not game mastering, we're just rolling the 1 for your soak, or where you just you roll, you don't soak, there's nothing you can do to boost it, and you just, as a game master, you're just like trying to think of all the no contingency plans for this.
Yeah. Making it so an enemy can't soak is incredibly powerful. And I remember when I first started playing some games in Torganized play, everyone was always like, oh, these Maelstrom cards are garbage, and like discarding them all the time. And from my group, my players would hoard Maelstrom and use that when fighting the boss, because they would spend their this was early before they learned to hoard them, but they would spend all their possibilities, so they're out anyway. What do they care? Throw it down. I can't soak now. And they would just take them out. So this is way better than a Maelstrom. So it's awesome.
Moving on. Card number 6, Escalation. Play at any time during an encounter. Enemy reinforcements arrive, including a reality-rated foe. All Storm Knights gain 1 to 3 possibilities after the adversaries are dealt with, depending on the strength of the forces who appeared. So, Jay, your thoughts on Escalation?
It's just the standard more dudes arrive card. There's like the Wandering Monster and Dino Attack. Pretty much every Cosm's got one. The specific mention that there must be a reality-rated foe does make this a little bit tougher in some ways than some of the other ones, and that it's also happening during an encounter. This is a weird one, and I find these cards are always kind of strange to judge as a GM, because if I'm playing with my home game, they're great, they're fine. But if I'm like running at a tournament, or not a tournament, but like a convention or a Torganized play game where we only have 3 to 4 hours, this card is just going to make things take longer. And so my immediate reaction is always to throw like the most weenie creatures that will just get completely killed in 1 round and just give them 1 possibility and be done with it. But this one has the reality rated foe, so it's going to make it a little bit tougher. So even with a reality rated foe, it is potentially still just one possibility. So that makes you have to rethink it. So some players I found are very reluctant to play these because they're just scared that they'll get damaged. Some players, usually tanks, with high toughness, are love playing these and just get into more scraps. So I mean, it's pretty good, pretty like just I would call it nice and average. Again, if people are running low on possibilities, or you've been involved in a research game with lots of diplomacy and your character just really wants to fight something, because it doesn't say during a combat encounter, it says during an encounter, so you can make any encounter into a combat encounter.
Mark, your thoughts on escalation?
So I like escalation. I like all of the cards that, both from when I'm playing and when I'm GMing, I like the cards that add to an encounter, or turn, as Jay pointed out, turn a research encounter or an investigative encounter into combat encounter. I would contend that one of the things that I kind of fudge a little bit is play at any time during an encounter. I like to drop this on the table when I get it, if I'm going to play it, and just say, hey, GM, I have this card. I intend to play it. I'm putting it on the table so that you can manipulate when the best time is thematically for the game to insert this into your game. And then that gives the GM the freedom to say, because I've given them license to say, I'm playing this whenever it makes sense. You pick the best time. It still happens the same way in gameplay. The verbiage is the verbiage specifically says you're supposed to play it during an encounter, but I'm giving them free call to pick the encounter that I would have played it in. And so, okay, whatever. So I put it on the tabletop. That gives your GM the ability to get their brain around the idea that one of these encounters coming up needs to have this content in it. And so they can make this, well, what fits best? And it, from the story that the GM is telling in their game, this encounter would fit better than that one, but I chose to play it over here on the other side because that's when I wanted to play it, and now they're struggling to fit it in, and it shoehorns and it looks clunky. You know what I'm saying? So I like the idea of giving your GM the flexibility to pick the time. And to Jay's point, when organized play, or in a convention setting, when you have a hard slot, playing this card out front when you get it at the beginning, saying I intend to play this, just letting you know, you fit it in whenever, gives your GM the flexibility to maybe make the encounter a little juicier than, because Jay's absolutely right. You've figured out what your time frame is, what your mission's going to run, how much time you have to get it in, and you're always mentally, or you should be always mentally checking off, how much have we played, what do we have left to play, what's my time limit, where am I, what do I fit in there? And so that in a convention or in an organized play, playing it early so that your GM can get their head around that, lets them know, hey, I got to throw the weenie encounter in there and give you one possibility because we just don't have time for it. Or, you guys are playing quick, you've hit some really good rolls, I can beef this up and make it more interesting. Let's do something that's, a 2 or a 3.
Okay, so yes, escalation along with the other ones, I also agree. I like when these are played to give the game master time to think about. As a game master, I usually look at what realities are in the adventure and will have one of these groups set up for each type of those realities, so then I can drop it in. There have been a couple times where you could say I cheated or didn't do it as intended, where I've just turned a normal encounter that was going to be in the game anyway and just said, "Oh, that's that encounter."
Yeah. I've done that.
So then I don't
Ooh,
take
Among
up
Us.
any extra time, but they get more possibilities at the end. And the other thing is, I know when these cards first came out, and probably still for people, they were wondering, oh, what do you call a three possibility, group, or what is a, one possibility group threat? And I basically say, don't try to form a three possibility group or a two possibility group. Just form a group, have the Storm Knights fight it, and how easy they take it out or how difficult it is, that is where
That's
where you
Yeah, I
get
think
the
some of the
one
other
through.
cards
I hadn't
say it
considered
like
that.
way.
That's a good approach. I hadn't thought about that. Just here's the encounter I want to do. How easy or hard you have with it is how many possibilities you. I hadn't thought about that.
So that's
I
just
mean, that's
various ways to think about it.
Rod's approach, and I like Rod's approach is to look at the cards ahead of time when you're running the mission and create. He calls them stacks. Is just say, well, okay, if this gets played, here's what I'm going to drop in, and have a couple of things for each card. Have put in a little time as your prep time, and he'll have 2 or 3 encounters keyed to that card that makes sense for whatever mission he's running.
Amusingly, I talked to Rod about that before, and we discovered we'd run these things entirely differently. Because for me, part of the fun is the GM is trying to immediately think of that
Yeah, me
as soon
too.
as they play it, just to make it fit with what's actually
On
happening.
the fly. Yep.
So I don't like to have anything prepared. I like to just like, oh, it's going to be, out of the bush comes Chupacabra or something.
Or you figure out, okay, he doesn't have any reality skill. He does now, and he's got two possibilities. All right, here we go.
I mean, the easiest way to do this is to just make the next encounter have half as many people, and then the second half show up.
No, otherwise it's a good card, and as Jay said, I do like how this one has the reality rated foe included because the other ones don't specify that. So card number 7, There's Always Hope. All tests related to a dramatic skill resolution are favored for the rest of the scene. Jay, thoughts on There's Always Hope?
All related, huh? Yeah, this seems pretty good. Especially if your GM is always throwing a DSR in every adventure. You're going to get to use it, right? So I would assume, even though it says all tests related to, that really just means the ones for steps of the DSR, because otherwise you could argue that almost everything you're doing is related to it in some way. And I guess I would also say it's probably only on the Storm Knight's behalf, not the people defending whatever you're doing the DSR against. So in that case, this is a good one. If you know there's going to be a DSR, make everything favored. And it's not like it's favored for you, it's for your whole team. So that's very good, especially if you have a wildly different skilled team and it's a DSR that requires very different skills for each step, and you can't just have one person do the whole thing. Doesn't save you from a mishap, though.
Mark.
You just gave me an idea that I'm going to implement at some point. All tests related to a dramatic skill resolution. I'm going to run a skill resolution where all the tests are opposed in Core Earth, and I'm going to wait for somebody to drop this, and then the bad guys' tests are favored too, because it says all
they're
tests
related.
So you know who you are. It might be coming that your way. Now this is another easy button for from as a GM standpoint. I don't like this one either, because it's an easy button on the part that you've put a lot of work into to make cool. And I despise with a passion, and it seems to happen inordinately. I guess it's because God knows I don't like it, that I'm running the big dramatic skill resolution in the dramatic scene, and here's the culmination of what the mission is all about. And somebody flips over that, I flip over that first drama card, and it's ABCD, and they blow it out of the water in the first round, all 4 steps, and all this, because Rod's like, you write too much box text. I write too much box text, but I got box text for every step, and now I'm like, well, I can't read all this stuff because you're gonna be sitting here for 5 minutes as I read through all the box text for all 4 steps you just blew out of the water. We're done. All right, here's your experience. Go on, just go. Spend your experience.
So no, I think this is definitely one that when the DSR starts, you want to throw down. You don't want to wait. Yeah. Unless you're waiting for the next DSR. That would be the only thing. But otherwise, no, just drop this at the beginning. Yes, I would do it as not the guy shooting at the enemies while the DSR is going, but I would allow the people helping through, say, extra effort, combined action, that rule to be favored because they are trying to help the person who is doing the
That step.
DSR. So yeah, a DSR easy button, as Mark said. Moving on to card number 8, Seize the Day. Play when a new drama card is revealed. Swap the conflict lines for the heroes and villains, including initiative. So the whole thing gets swapped. Seize the Day, Jay.
Almost always useful. Very good to wait until the dramatic scene. And yeah, it's all like I said, just almost always comes in handy because there's always some conflict line that screws over the players and they complain about it and there'll be setbacks or things like that on it. And barring having all of those leadership or prowess perks that let you muck around with it, this is the easy way to do it. Of course, it's only one shot. You can't just keep doing it, but usually one shot's all you really need when it's villain setback or where it's a player setback that you can turn into a villain setback, Yeah, so really good. Doesn't give you possibilities, but overall can end a fight pretty quickly.
Mark.
Yeah, it's lower on my totem pole of things in this deck that I like. It's good because it's a Core Earth card. It does effectively allow you to not deal with, especially if you hold it off into the dramatic scene where almost all the cards do bad things to the heroes. And my question would be, because I don't have Surge, most people are okay with Surge. If confused comes up on the situation line, can you play this? Because confused is no cards. But this is a Cosm card.
It's just no drama card.
I don't know what
cards, right?
I don't have confused, the wording of confused in front of me. So I don't know if it doesn't allow for Cosm cards or if it's just drama cards.
I think Jay's doing a quick Control F.
Well, open some stuff, then do a Control F. I'm pretty sure
we'll stall long enough for you to go find it, because so I have to open a drawer and pull a book out.
Oh my God. I see this as the anti-40 card. When 40,
it is the anti.
When the drama card number 40 shows up, everybody groans, and sometimes you can't get rid of all of those things because, as Mark said, if you get those certain leadership social perks that allow you to manipulate aspects, you might not be able to manipulate everything, and this just manipulates the whole card. So boom, you just completely reverse that card. So
Confused just says you cannot use cards from your pool.
Okay, so you can play this because that's never pulled.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. Cards from
pool. You accidentally put it there. Can't use it.
So you could get rid of the confusion.
You could, which that's to me the least valuable one, because the villains don't have cards, right? And so you make them confused. Okay, big deal. They don't have cards, no big deal. Off we go. But you're not confused. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially a dramatic.
There was
that, there's.
Go ahead, and then I'll.
Well, there's like as you both pointed out, there's leadership perks that do this too. So that, to me, that kind of devalues this card just a little bit, because if you've got one of those leadery guys in the group, he's been doing it the whole time. This is just an additional seize initiative, essentially.
The only thing I wanted to say is, there is extremely rare, but occasional, like super rare. I don't even know if a once in a blue moon type thing where a threat will be able to get a card, because as a game master, one of the best moments of Torg Eternity game mastering is when I got to draw a card as a villain and I got opponents failed. And when somebody racked up a bunch of damage, I just jumped up out of the game masters and threw down the card and laughed like they all did hundreds of times to me previously.
And without giving away any spoilers, because as Mark mentioned, there are ways that you could potentially use these cards even if you're not in Core Earth. And I can't remember if any of it takes place in a mixed zone or not, but if you're playing Operation Soft Cell, might come in handy.
So let's move on to card number 9. Go for broke. All Storm Knights may ignore up to 4 points of penalties this round for any and all actions. So Jay, your thoughts on go for broke?
The fact that it's everybody is very good. It's, there's not really anything you could say. It's just, this is a good card. Ignore 4 points of penalties. Go, go for those called shots. It's just good.
Mark.
Mook Slayer. Go out, just wade into them. You were going to take 3 or 4 of them anyway. Go for 8. I mean, any 4 points from anything. You got darkness penalties. Okay, now it's not so dark. There's someone's flash bulb went off or something. I mean, that's the power of this card. Is it's anything. It's not like range penalties or multi-action penalties or multi-target penalty. It's penalties. So yeah, but it's a one and done. So from a Cosm cards perspective, it's not that great. But the fact that it everybody gets it for that one round makes that round well, if I was saving some of my power for the right moment, here's your right moment.
Here's the time.
Boom. Yeah.
And the way I read it, because it just says any and all actions, it's not talking about only your actions. You could get rid of a vulnerable or very vulnerable, get rid of a stymied and vulnerable, and then the attack, you could go all out attack and not worry, at least for this round, if it's
it
there.
Doesn't say you're getting rid of them. It says ignore. So
you ignore them.
You can't, if you can't take if you're very stymied, you ignore the -4, but you're still very stymied or very vulnerable. You're still vulnerable, very vulnerable. So
I mean, very vulnerable wouldn't really apply anyway, right? Or
well, but if you wanted to move away,
that it would.
It says for the round. So
for the round. Yeah. Okay. I didn't actually think about that. Yeah.
So what I mean, if you wanted to, I would say if you were going if somebody, it depends on when you play the card. Say you played the card and they've made you very vulnerable, and somebody goes, you could say for this round, my very vulnerable -4 is ignored. Now you won't get to ignore things on your own attacks, but for them, sure.
Well, but my point is, like, moving away, you got to become vulnerable to move away, or very vulnerable. If you're already very vulnerable and you can't stack the vulnerable to move away from a target so that somebody else can shoot it.
It doesn't get rid of it. It just ignores it. So you're still very vulnerable. You just don't have those negatives.
Well, right. But my point is, if you can't take on the vulnerable to move away, you're not allowed to move away.
Right.
So you can't ignore the fact, if somebody's already made you very vulnerable and you're in melee and you want to move away, you're still very vulnerable. You just don't have to worry about the penalties, or very, very stymied. You're not going to be able to get rid of that. You're not going to be able to take on additional stacks. It's not like it's gone.
Correct.
You're just ignoring the penalty there.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Follow where I'm going?
I'm saying you're correct. What I was saying is you could all out attack, and then it's within the same round. You could say, okay, I don't have the -4 to my defenses while that person's attacking me. So
I think personally, running this in my game, I would probably not go this theoretical with it. And would just limit it to the actions you're taking. Yeah. Because then it's like, oh, well, like, I'll just take 2 off of the very vulnerable and put 2 off of this attack. It seems kind of like a nightmare to keep track of it all.
So table variation.
Yes, table variation. There you go.
We'll get to the last one. Lucky break number 10. Play to negate all wounds and shock from a single attack. So Jay.
Some of these cards, I've gotten the impression that Mark has suffered pain from them being played against him.
Show me on the internet where the cards have hurt you.
This is the one for me. Like, there's been so many times where I'm like, oh, I finally hit one of them. And I'm finally did. I didn't kill them or anything, but I did some damage to make them realize this is serious. And then it's bam, lucky break, totally unscathed. Yeah. Now this is only for your well, it's not for yourself, it's for someone, but it only affects a single attack. So if the enemy makes a multi-target attack, that whole thing does nothing, right?
It's a super
really good.
opponent fails.
Yeah, yeah. So this is really good. I mean, it's not as, I guess, proactive as some of the other ones. But unlike defeat tests or being KO'd, getting hit at all is not out of the realm of possibility. Like it does happen. So this sees more use. And yeah, it's very disheartening as the GM to finally think you've done something dramatic and then it's just gone. And then you find out the next round they also have an opponent fails. That's the best.
Or a close call.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is I've seen this one come out quite a few times, and I'm desensitized to this one just because it is opponent fails. It's used the same way that opponent fails is used. The effect from a GM standpoint is the same thing as the opponent fails. Is it you just sometimes though I've seen it a couple times where I'm happy that they had it because my dice exploded. And I was like, I didn't mean to do 8 wounds. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get a little resources out of your hand. And now they're like, oh my gosh, I got a test for defeat. Nope, nothing. So
Core Earth cards, all positive. So it's not like some that it's negative or positive to one person and negative to somebody else. Looking at you, Trap. But yeah, a nice. Normally, people love being in Core Earth for these cards. Mix zones with Core Earth because of these cards. Sometimes when you get into depending on what card in Nile or Isle, then you start kind of wondering. But generally, if you're going to get, if you want to be guaranteed you won't get something bad, it's the Core Earth card. So, that is it for today's Delphi Council debriefing. Remember, you can email us at torgdcd@gmail.com, and we will read your emails. We will answer any questions you have. And other than that, we hope you have fun in your own cosm. Bye, everybody.